Hi there again, all my film camera nerds. So today we're going to talk about what I think is the most beautiful camera in my film collection, and it's a really cool one. Now, if you've watched my video of all of my film cameras that I own, you've seen this one already, but I think it bears repeating because the Exakta VX is a camera to behold. This thing is very beautiful, a really interesting camera with a lot of curious features on it that I think we should really talk about. So let's get into it. So the Exakta VX, or it's really the VX VX, but in the US, some of the export models were only known as the VX. They were made by IHG, which is IHG, really, in German, IH und G. So IHG is the name of this former company that made Exakta cameras. And the idea behind Exakta is that this was one of the first, if not the first, SLR camera. Of course, the VX came later. This is a 1950s camera, but some of the ones that Exakta made, I believe in the 30s, were some of the earliest SLR cameras. And so they were really a pioneer in that space, that you could see, as the name implies, exactly what was going on through the lens instead of guessing with a, well, not guessing, but using a rangefinder to like approximate distances. This you could say, oh no, I see it and I know what this looks like. I'm not looking through some other window and you know, sort of making the camera do the physics for me. So this camera is really interesting. I think it has some really beautiful styling. Like, let's just take a second to look at, first of all, it's this like interesting trapezoidal figure. And that's because they had to account for the mirror and the prism and everything. And I think they just did what they could to fit it all in there, but also keeping this fairly compact. So you have a really interesting and unique shape for this camera. I don't think I've ever seen anything else that it is this sort of shape. Another curious thing is if we look at the top deck here, you'll notice our wind lever, that's on the left side. So when we go to wind, that's with our left hand. And it's a really beautifully machined wind lever. And then our shutter is also here on the left. And it has such a beautiful sound to it. Like, this camera is it has just such an interesting quality to it. So if we look at this top deck again, I've been shooting, that was on 1/25th of a second. So let's wind it again. Let's reset it to, now with these cameras, you don't have to worry about changing the speed before or after winding. I do it as just good hygiene thing, that if I, on all my cameras, my SLRs included, if I change the shutter speed after I've wound, then I won't forget to do that when I'm using my rangefinder and break my rangefinder cameras. So with this, the only thing to note is that we have an arrow right here, and this arrow is telling us to only wind the shutter speed dial in that direction. So let's say we wanted to go from 1/25th to bulb. Well, tough luck. You've got to go all the way around. So don't take the shortcuts here. And so now we're at 1/500th of a second. Camera's already wound. Beautiful. Now, again, if we wanted 1/1000th of a second, if we wanted to jump back, so to speak, again, tough luck, go back around as the dial's telling you to do. Don't turn it against the dial. I don't know what happens if you do, but I imagine it's not good. So why push your luck? So the shutter speeds on this vary, but we have a B and a T mode, our bulb and our time mode, and then we go to 25, 50, 100, 150, 250, 500, and 1000. So The 1000's pretty good on a, older SLR, especially from the 50s. I have some cameras that, were made in the 80s and 90s that top out at 500. So this thing was moving at 1000 in the 50s. So really a nice thwack of a shutter. You'll notice again, the shutter arm here is beautiful. Beautifully machined. You should let it go gently and easily so that you don't like drop it and, make it all confused or whatever. On this side is where we access our slow speeds and also where you can access the time delay. Now, I have not played with those on this camera. The reason I haven't is, number one, because I'm seldom shooting with these film cameras at anything that I would like need to shoot really slow. The second reason is because I got this camera from Goodwill. I was on Goodwill's website and I found this camera and it was an absolute bargain. And it was probably one of the greatest things I've ever gotten off Goodwill.com. And I don't know how, like I ordered this and thought like for sure this is going to come, it's going to be broken and I'm going to have to figure out something to do with it. Maybe I'll just put it on my shelf and it'll look nice or something. But regardless, it came and it was working in just fantastic condition and like looks nice overall. But I don't really want to tempt fate and play with this dial. So again, if you want to shoot like any slower shutter speeds, anything lower than 1/25 of a second, I believe what you do is you set it to the T on this one, and then you're able to access the times on this. And then when you wind the opposite direction or something like that, that's how you can access like the delay settings that it will, like if you wanted to take a selfie with this or something. I believe you have to wind for that. Again, I'm not terribly sure and I'm kind of scared to really play with that on mine because I don't really know when the last time this camera was serviced was, but it's in great shape overall and I love, like, I'm good with 1/25 up to 1/1000th. That's pretty well what I get on everything else. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything by not playing with this side, but for the sake of you to look at it, as you can see, it is a complex amount of digits and other sort of miscellany there that, yeah, frankly is not the most intuitive. So your guess is as good as mine on how exactly to use that. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's like for the slower shutter speeds, you set the time and then you just select a shutter on that side, versus if you wind it the one direction, then you can set your time delay. Now let's take a look at some of the other interesting parts of this camera. So here we are again with our Exakta VX, and now that you can see it from the top, you'll be able to look and really see just like the beautiful motion of this camera. It's so cool. On this camera in particular, this is a lens I had got after the fact. This is a Colmagon 35mm f 4.5, which is pretty slow for a 35mm. Exakta lenses are not like the most plentiful. It was a very expensive camera back in the day, and a lot of the lenses that they made for it were high quality, and so finding some of the cheaper lenses for this, it's not easy. Frankly, I plan to get an adapter that I would be able to run my M42 lenses on this camera. That way I don't have to worry as much. But you know what, an f4.5, it's not that bad, especially if you can use film that's fast enough. It's not that big a deal. And especially at 35mm, you can still get some, background blur depending on how you shoot. It'll be fine. Now, a confession that I have is I actually haven't shot this camera yet. I've had it for a while and I haven't shot it yet. And it's a shame because it's so beautiful and I need to take it out and try it. But this is the lens that the camera came with. It's this Carl Zeiss Jena Tessar, and it's a f 3.5 50mm lens. Tessars, as you may know, are renowned as just a quality lens overall. Carl Zeiss Jena, as you may be aware, is the offshoot, the East German offshoot of the Zeiss company. This lens has frozen up a little bit in the focusing helicoid. It's not very smooth anymore, but you know, what more can you ask? So if we're going to put this lens back on, we have a red dot. We align that with the red dot on the body, and it clicks over. A lot of Exakta lenses you'll see actually like have a whole collar with this bayonet mount, and it like covers up the button and stuff for the shutter. It's actually quite fascinating that they did that. But anyway, just if you're looking to take lenses on and off, there's this little lock here for the bayonet mount. You can just take it on and off. It's nice and easy. Not particularly difficult and complicated, but again, solved the issue that you had with M42 lenses coming undone whenever you were just sort of casually using them. But there's another thing that I actually got after the fact, because I was just so fascinated that these are such modular cameras. You can actually change out how you view the camera. And so right now it's sort of your classic SLR, but this camera was made with such a dizzying array of attachments and things. There's, I believe, ways to mount this to microscopes, like that this was in use for some of the most high-tech camera usage that you could have. So one of the things that I invested in is this. This is an extra attachment that you can get for your Exakta. And look at that. This here is a waist level finder. As you can see, it has the IHG branding on it. On the bottom here we have glass, so be very careful with that. But what we're able to do is, here I'll just gently set that here. If we press down on this, we're able to release the prism up here. Prism comes right out, and now we can put in our waist level finder. There's the mirror down inside. Interesting, right? If we take our prism, the one thing that I learned is that when the prism goes in, there is this little arm here that goes down into the side. So, okay, so I think we have this mostly seated. Let's see. There we go. And it's in. So now if we pop this open, this one side's a little slower than the other, we can wind on, and you can see through it. Probably don't see too much here since it's a little dark through that, but on my desk. But anyway, you can also pull down a magnifying lens here for your critical focus, which is pretty cool. But I just thought this was fascinating that this camera has like such easily interchangeable parts on the top, a variety of lenses on a bayonet mount, a good amount of shutter speeds, a good amount of slow speeds. Like, this thing was decked out, and my understanding is this would have been a very expensive camera back in the day, because it was very high tech, all things said. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually look inside the camera. So let's pull up on this foot and twist, and now that has released and opened the back of the camera here. So as we see, we have the serial number here. We have several other things. I think what's really cool is Pacific Photo Products here from LA. I wonder if Pacific Photo Products is still around. I'm going to take a guess and say no, given how old that sticker is, but you never know. That'd be really cool. So this is pretty classic for the most part. Again, you'll notice that the film will load on this side, stretch across this side, hit the teeth here, and your take-up spool is here. Your take-up spool can come out, and you know, it's pretty straightforward in that regard. What's cool is that there is like a lock on the take-up spool, so I can't get that unless I like give it a little twist, and then once you give it that twist, you can get it to come out. So it like goes on and then once it's twisted on, it sort of locks in place, which is actually quite nifty because it's, you know, not gonna, in some of my other cameras it just falls out and goes flying across the room. So in this case it's stable, which is kind of nice. Now what you'll notice interestingly here is we have a cloth shutter. So what you might expect from like a Leica or something like that. And as we wind, there goes the curtain. Here, I'll just pop this up so it lets me release the shutter. Let's set something slow, shall we? Let's set 125. Here we go. Let's try that one more time. Nice. It's really cool. A really unique camera inside and out. What you need to know about this camera is that when you're ready to rewind, this little lever here is how you do it. You pop it up and that will allow you to, that disengages the film drive and lets you rewind it. A curious feature on this camera is right here. This is a film cutter, and so if we unscrew this, we can pull down on this, and this little razor blade comes out and slices your film. See that? And that would be helpful back in the day if, let's say, you were a doctor and you had just taken a photo of someone's condition or whatever, and you needed to send that along to another doctor. You weren't going to sit here and shoot a whole nother roll of film before you sent it out. You could slice that off and, you know, get that photo developed and get the patient treated. So if you were using in this camera, like let's say you had the cartridges, the old school cartridges where like you could, your take-up spool and your cartridge, you could run it into the next cartridge and just close it off, and like you'd slice the film, wind it on until it's in the cartridge, take it right out, and you're ready to go again. Just pull the film back out. So you would have this nice sort of ability to, at any time, pull shots out and go get them developed. I think this is kind of an anachronism at this point. I don't think this is anything that I would ever use for anything, because why would I go cutting my film when I have no reason to? So it's cool, it's interesting, but it's not really useful in today's day and age. Now, when it comes to closing this camera, I sometimes struggle to do so. I don't know why. I don't know if this camera is a little less than, you know, obviously new. So I know you're supposed to probably pretty well put it back the way that it came open, but I sort of struggle with that. Like the foot here doesn't always want to drop back down. And so I try and find it and spin it around and do my best with it, but sometimes it takes a little doing. So let's see, much as I would like it to. Nope. All right. So I'm going to twist it back open so that it can shut. There we go. Okay. With a small twist back, I got it to reseat. So yeah, that part sort of stymies me yet. It feels random when it decides to lock in and not, but you know, it's fine. It's you're not always sitting here taking film in and out of your camera. It's easy enough to get it open, a little more difficult for me to get it closed, and maybe that's just something specific to my camera, but regardless, oh, you know what? Now that I'm seeing it, of course, we cannot forget the venerable sports finder on any waist level finder. So here we have, if you were to look through the front, now you can frame this up for all of the action shots that you're doing. And look at the brilliant engineering is that then your magnifier is right there as part of this, unless you were to swing it back for use for your critical focusing. It's pretty cool the way that they thought of everything on this camera. It's really fascinating. But I'm looking forward to shooting this camera a lot. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and just overall, yeah, it's a sight to behold. I am excited. So if you have any questions or thoughts, or if you just thought this was an interesting camera to look at, please let me know in the comments. We'll see you next time.